Hello, listeners. It's Mallory Wilsey, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a moment to tell you about another show on Enrollify that I know you'll love. Breaking Silos aims to showcase the remarkable work of marketing professionals and their non marketing colleagues from different departments across campus who come together to achieve common goals, implement new initiatives, enhance the student experience, and foster better collaboration among teams. Hosted by Shane Biglini, who leads marketing at Muhlenberg College, each episode of Breaking Silos will feature a marketer and their non marketing colleague to talk about that partnership. This unique format will inspire marketers to try new things and connect with colleagues in new ways, while also allowing non marketing professionals an inside look at some of the most collaborative projects in higher ed marketing. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, and you can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Breaking Silos wherever you get your podcasts.
Our episode 13 guest, Amelie Amthor, touched on her use of social media as part of her employer branding strategy with Saginaw Valley State University. So let's take this social media conversation a step further and talk to someone who literally wrote a book on social media strategy. This episode focuses on leveraging social media to attract the faculty and staff that you want at your institution. I'm going to take the liberty of teasing that there is an upcoming episode on social listening and social intelligence to boost your employer branding strategy. And that's all I'm going to tell you because, well, it's a tease. In this episode, however, you're going to learn three things. First, you're going to learn what considerations need to be made before folding social media into your talent attraction strategy. You're also going to get an idea of how to choose the platforms that are best for your strategy. And third, our guest will give context to what it means for an institution to be authentic in attracting the faculty and staff that they want. All right, so now about this episode's guest. Jenny Lee Fowler. She's the Director of Social Media Strategy at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Also, she's the host of the Enrollify podcast, Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. She's the author of the new book, Organic Social Media: How to Build Flourishing Online Communities. And also, Jenny is a recurring correspondent for HubSpot's Inbound. You can read more about Jenny in the show notes. But for now, let's get into this episode of I Want to Work There. Welcome to I Want to Work There, a podcast that helps colleges and universities boost their brands as employers of choice. I'm your host, Eddie Francis, brand strategy consultant for Edify Ventures. Join me every other week for discussions with some of the best minds in talent recruitment and retention, human resources, and marketing and communications inside and outside of higher education. I Want to Work There is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals just like you grow. And explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. The one, the only,
Oh my.
Jenny Lee Fowler. Jenny, welcome to I Want to Work There. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. I listen. So I'm not even gonna front like I've known Jenny forever. However, I feel like I've known Jenny for a while because,
Oh.
like so many other folks, Jenny, I started following you on social. Of course, Twitter was the place of choice. And it's really been very cool watching your progression and the book and the podcast and all the cool stuff. So let's take this from the beginning. Tell us about what it is that you do and how you developed such a passion for social media management.
Yeah, I am the director of social media strategy for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. But really, that's a fancy title for saying I think about and do and research and study and help with and consult, our MIT affiliates all on social media. It was fun. Social media, like 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, was this new space. And we were all just experimenting and learning and failing and learning um, as we go. And it just was really new space to like tell stories and a new way to tell stories. And it just really drew my attention. And it was fun. And I still love it. I loved it then. I still love it now.
That is good to hear. What keeps getting you out of bed and getting you to log on to the phone and to the laptop and to the other devices? What keeps you going?
From the start, I think one of the things that really drew me to social media and the fun of it was that people are so creative. They're
Yeah.
so clever. And those moments where, you have a thought and someone shares it on social and, you feel seen or you just
Yeah.
feel like, oh my gosh, or someone takes the thought you had and runs with it and makes it like 10 times funnier than you would have ever thought to have made it yourself.
Mhm.
Those moments I just love when people are just so clever
Yeah.
and so hilarious, and those moments still exist a lot, often on social. So those are the moments I still live for.
It's funny to hear you say that because I always say that the part of social media that people always tend to forget is the human part of it.
Mm.
That all of, like you said, all of the creativity, but to know that these are people who you could easily be sitting next to in a restaurant. You could easily, you could easily be on a subway with them. You could easily be sitting next to them at a traffic light, or you could easily see them in a supermarket, and they just posted something that got, I don't know, 2,000 likes, and all this stuff, and you're sitting there going, that is the hilarious guy, that is the really funny guy, and he seems like he's actually a nice person.
Yes,
I think people
yes.
tend to forget the human part of it. What do you think?
I think that it has become a multi-million dollar industry.
Mm,
It's where, lots of brands are fighting for attention, and we're still having the conversation of what is authentic, or,
yeah.
what's authenticity. And so, which is sad, I think, so I think maybe there's just a lot more in the space to weed through, but I still love the posts where, those someone posts a Halloween costume, and
Yeah.
and they're like the orange line in Boston that's on fire, or and they're so
Yeah.
clever with it, like just those really funny moments I just still love and live for.
So can I tell you one of the funniest social media things about my wife thought I was she thought there was something seriously wrong with me, but when I was really really stressed out about work, there was one type of video that would always ease my stress, and it was a video of any panda bear eating. I mean, it would just be a panda bear sitting there eating bamboo. The panda bear would be eating carrots, sweet potatoes, and for whatever reason, I found that to be the most relaxing thing. I don't know why.
There you go. Then you have your thing you go to every time you want to put down your decrease your blood pressure, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's there's just something about, the even the listening to the crunching sounds is
Yes.
very
Yes.
sort of like ASMR like. And I'll tell you, my feeds are filled with like babies and puppies. Like, babies discovering ice cream for the first time, or like, or puppies doing like silly things, or how they react when their human kisses them, how sweet.
Yeah.
That's what I look at, when I need to cleanse the feed and
Yeah.
decrease my blood pressure.
That is so cool. So we have right now, let's say we have an HR department. and
Mhm.
they're at a university, and they're saying, "Oh man, we have got to attract more talent, or we have to change the type of talent that we want to attract." And they get with the Marcom team, and everybody starts thinking through this thing, and then somebody says, "Hey, let's start an account on TikTok." you know,
Right.
you know,
Right. Which
but
is
they would
which is
they
always the thing someone comes up with, right? Let's start an account in XYZ.
whatever the new hotness is, right? And so
Right.
they're thinking that they want to start this account on this platform, whatever the new hot platform is to them at the time. What would you say are some of the initial considerations that this HR and or Marcom team should be making if they want to fold social media into their talent attraction strategy?
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really interested in the thought of like an HR and Marcom teaming up. I don't think that happens enough. And
Hmm.
I think that both departments or units can benefit from that greatly. Sometimes when I see HR departments that are on social, I think they lean toward just putting job,
Yeah.
openings on there. It's just like one job opening after another. And I think that that's sort of antiquated thinking. I think
Hmm.
now, as everything else, it comes down to the content, right? But I think one thing that you could do easily is, tomorrow is to tap into um, your current employers or
Hmm.
employees
Hmm.
and the people who work there, because a lot of your employees are posting things about their workspace, about what they do, about the culture in different social media and platforms. And I think, if you can just tap into that and amplify it, not just show them the postings, the job
Hmm.
postings, but to show them that, this is a place you want to work, right? That's the name
Hmm.
of like, I want to work there. Like, why would someone want to work there? Like, the benefits, right? Some perks and benefits people might not be aware of, like the culture.
Hmm.
And if your current, your current employees are talking about this in positive ways, that's an easy way to tap into that, I think. And with the user generated content of your employees, and I think there are a
Mm.
lot of platforms that allow you to do this, right? Like,
Mhm.
I if I anytime I share something, on LinkedIn, it says, do you want to share this or encourage your MIT employees that claim affiliation with MIT to share this as well? I mean, there's a lot of
Mm.
built-in
Mhm.
mechanisms that allow you to do these things, and I think that that's something you can start doing,
Yeah.
immediately.
When I was a recruiter, there was an account that I worked on, and out of sheer frustration, I told the client, we have got to do something on social because this company that I was recruiting for, they were running in circles. They kept going after the same candidates. They would go to the
Mm.
competitor and steal their candidates, and then the candidates would come back and steal their people back, and then
Mhm, mhm,
and it kept going back and forth. So I said, well, wait, who else is out there? Who else can we get? And so, out of sheer frustration, I actually started a Twitter account for him, which
mhm,
wasn't the best move. I thought it was a great move at the time, but the mistake I made was that I did exactly what you were talking about. I would post job openings, but
mm,
there was no conversation. And Twitter is
mhm,
very conversational. And
mhm.
so hearing you say that, um, well, first of all, it brings back some bad memories of a mistake.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
no, but
Sorry.
seriously, no, but seriously, it really does. It's really great to hear you say that. There has to be something beyond the job posting. That there has to be something out there about the culture of where you are and that sort of thing. And I just have to ask you this as a follow up. So, folks say, you know what? I work at XYZ college, and our culture isn't great, and I don't think I want to say anything about the culture on social. How do you respond to that?
That's a tough thing because, user generated content is exactly that, is that you don't want to ask them. You want them to already be posting these things. I did want to say, Eddie, I have made so many mistakes myself. We have all made mistakes. And I always say, as soon as you learn from a mistake, it's not a mistake anymore, right? It was a lesson that made you better, or that you learned from, that is refining your strategy. So it's all a part. If you learn something, it's all a part of the process. But anyhow, so pivoting back to your question, I think that it's great to be transparent in those spaces, which is incredibly hard, right? But say but if you say, look, we've been listening to you, we've been listening to our students in the social place space, and we know our dining facilities are, can be improved. So we've heard you. You could say, we've heard you, and we've done A, B, and C. And and we'd love to hear what you think of these changes. So, or I think there's something to be said for saying, you've been heard,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
this is what we're trying to do. We know this is where we're lacking, so we're trying to make these changes, and we'd love for you to be a part of our team in the future. I think that's where you just have to be transparent and honest.
Yeah.
That's what works the best in social spaces.
Yeah, and I think for job candidates, all they're asking for a lot of times is the truth. And so I think for them, if they see that transparency, the right candidates are going to respond the right way. I can see where a candidate would say, man, okay, they're having challenges with their facilities. I'm glad I know this. Now I can decide for myself whether or not I'm going to apply. And some people say, you know what, I want to be part of the solution. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply anyway. So I think that's great. Do you how do you deal with folks following that thought, Jenny? How do you deal with folks who have that fear of what the backlash of transparency is going to be on social media? Cuz I've sat in rooms with people who have said, oh no, don't put that on social media. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, but
Yeah,
if you don't, people are going to find out on the back end, and that's a little worse. So,
it's
how,
much worse.
yeah,
Yeah.
how do you deal with that pushback?
I mean, that's so hard
Hmm.
because if they don't have, say on a leadership team, if there isn't a person or a peer on that leadership team that is sort of saying, no, look, that's not going to come across very well.
Hmm.
It's um people are going to know it's virtue signaling. We can't just,
Hmm.
whitewash our reputation on social. We have to, it has to reflect what we are, right?
Hmm.
So I that's tough. I think by now, there's such a long history of social, and social has a very long memory. There are lots of um, there are lots of examples out there now where maybe an organization posted this thing and it didn't go well because it wasn't reflective of the actual organization. Like
Hmm.
they we
Hmm.
can it didn't it people want receipts, right?
Yeah.
If what you say on your social media channels is not really reflective of how you're operating your actual organization,
Mhm.
people know, and people will call you on it. And so I think those examples are sadly pretty easy to find now.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think that if you lead with data and say, look, this didn't go well for these institutions, and what we've learned from, their all of these sort of missteps is that social audiences, expect but also respect
Mhm.
transparency and the truth, and for you to really, you're not really fooling anyone at this point, right?
Yeah, no, no, we certainly are not fooling anybody. You're listening to I Want to Work There. I'm Eddie Francis, and we're talking to Jenny Lee Fowler. She's the Director of Social Media Strategy at MIT. Also, she's the host of the Enrollify podcast, Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. So, let's talk platforms. So again, the HR team, the Marcom team, one and or both of them, they have gotten together. They are starting to look at platforms. Obviously, when it comes to talent attraction, the first platform that a lot of folks are going to think of is LinkedIn,
Hmm.
as the
Hmm.
way to do some outreach. But when it comes down to the platforms that a college or university should use, I mean, I joked a little earlier about TikTok, but when it comes down to the types of platforms that an institution should use, how should they approach that conversation about which platforms to use?
Honestly, I think it's the same conversation as all of us should be having. Like, where are our audiences?
Hmm.
Who are we trying to reach? And let's have a really honest conversation about the content that we can create. I think a lot of times it does happen to land on sort of the personality in HR. Like, I've seen
Yeah.
some people in HR do a really, really great job on their own personal channels for their work, and they're incredibly engaging and they do a really job, but it's because of their personality.
Yeah.
Whereas, there might be someone that is not familiar or, not as active in social media and just think it's not a place at all for the HR department, which I don't think is true. That's not true at all. But
Hmm.
I think sometimes it falls on the personality. But really, like, there are like surgical departments that have really vibrant TikToks, and it's because they're playful and they're energetic and they're willing to sort of you know make fun of themselves as well, which is
Hmm.
which is all a part of a good culture, right? When you
Hmm.
can sort
Hmm.
of laugh at yourself. So I think that just if someone is it has to be the right person, but I think that a really if that's where your target audience is in, that generation Z,
Hmm.
or alpha, if that's where your target audience is, then that's the platform you should be in, right?
Mm.
So I just think it's no different than the conversations we have in our on our social media teams or communications team. It's, let's be honest about who we're trying to reach, where are they, and what content will provide value, and how can we tell our story, and do we have the resources for it? So.
Speaking of resources, I
Mm.
wanted to ask about capacity because you have these folks who get really ambitious and they want to start up a bunch of accounts or they want to recover the passwords for accounts that are no longer being used. And so
Right,
you
right,
you have these folks who they start to kind of force the issue and I've actually seen this happen where like the one specialist in HR is assigned about seven platforms.
right.
And I'm sitting there going, "Oh man, are you sure you can handle all of those platforms?" Because it doesn't sound like a lot when they started, but but about 2 weeks in, they realize that that's a
Th- th-
lot of work. So
they're drowning under, yeah,
yeah,
and
how does that work as far as that balance between wanting to really extend your reach, but then understanding the capacity that you actually have to
right.
get that kind of reach?
Well, I am a big believer in that you don't have to be in all of the spaces.
Amen. Say it
And
again. Please say
yeah,
it again.
no, it's true. You do not have to be in every platform. I
Yeah,
mean, if the goal is to be in every platform just to be in the platform, that's not ideal, and
right.
that's not going to gain a following or grow a community, right? I think that more of the focus should be in the quality of the content. Like, what are the
Mm-hmm.
stories? How good is your content? What value are you providing? And that could just be on one platform. But
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
you are just are you if you are doing if you are great in that one platform and your content is shareable, then your content will do what I call jump platforms.
Mm.
And that how many times have you seen tweets on or X posts on LinkedIn? Like,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
how many times have you seen TikToks on shorts, YouTube
Mm-hmm.
shorts? Or how many times have people DM'd you reels? Like,
Mm-hmm.
people email each other and direct or text each other really funny memes and gifs, right? They're
Hmm.
being shared in the spaces that we're not, and that includes direct messages and DMs. So I always say, if you concentrate on creating shareable content, then your audience will share it in all of the spaces for you.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to worry about being in all of the spaces. Just worry about making your content shareable. Now that's a whole other thing, but I think that we're not focusing on that enough, right?
I love the fact that you said you don't have to be on every platform. I can't tell you how many times I've had that argument with people, and they say, "Well, why isn't the university on this? Why aren't the university?" And I'm sitting there going, "The university has to be where it is strongest, and right now, the strongest platform is blank. Let's
Mm-hmm.
let's live there and let's do our business there because that is where we are thriving. That's where we're getting the
Mm-hmm.
engagement, and that's why I suspect, even though at the time I didn't necessarily have the numbers, but that's why I strongly suspected we were getting at least some semblance of conversions, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just elated to hear you say that, and so I would say this HR team: if your one platform is LinkedIn, rock it out and live with LinkedIn.
Amen.
Make it happen
Amen.
there because that's where you want to get your traction. And no, there's a good chance your candidates are not on TikTok. I hate to tell you that. One of the things, and I've listened to you do interviews on a couple of other podcasts, you really go in about authenticity. Shoot, the title of your book is about organic social media, and it also, I mean, the title, organic social media, how to build flourishing online communities, and I think there's a huge emphasis on organic and communities there, and it seems that that's where authenticity really 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 can build strength. So when we talk about the authenticity, when we talk about the importance of authenticity on social media and how that plays into a talent attraction strategy, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I just feel like you are the dream organization for someone.
Mm,
There's been
mm,
someone in the area that said, I want to work for, the University of West Virginia, or
mm-hmm,
my goal is to work for the University of Michigan. Where I mean, there are you have fans out there,
mm-hmm,
and they already know what you're good at, what you're bad at, what your culture
mm-hmm,
is, and those are your true fans. And so, I say just stick to like your bread and butter content, be your authentic like yourself on the platforms, and you'll attract your fans, right? You'll tap into your fandoms. That becomes your engaged community, That's not just a number, it's not just a following, that's your engaged community. And so, like, whatever that is, like at MIT, our love language is numbers. We love our nerd humor, you know. Pi Day is one of our favorites. We lean into that heavily,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, there are other or other schools that have successful football teams,
Mm-hmm,
like basketball teams. Like, there are rituals that every, maybe, healthy rituals that every first year class takes part in. And it's sort of inside baseball, but like, if when you talk about those things, to your community, they love that.
mm-hmm,
They love being a part of something that is shared with just that community of people. And when you share it with your community, you're giving a look at what your community is about to everybody else. And anyone who feels strongly or is saying, yeah, you know what, that's me, they get me, or I get them. And that's how you add to your community. So I always think, lean into what what your fans love you for. And you know
the thing that I appreciate so much about that is, I was in a situation. I was very fortunate to have worked under Walter Kimbrough, the hip hop press, and everybody knew him for having this magnetic social media presence. And
mm, mm,
he was able to do such a, and we had him on episode 19 of the podcast, and he was able to do such a great job of projecting the culture of Dillard when he was the president there, and he did a good
Mm,
job of calling out faculty and staff on social and talking about some of the things they did. But the thing that was so interesting to me about that entire dynamic is that there were also folks who felt, well, are we sexy enough for the professor who really wants to be at our crosstown rival? Are we big enough for the one who wants to work at Tulane or who wants to work at LSU? Are we that? And I would say this, Jen. He actually told this story on the podcast about how he actually kind of stole somebody from from a bigger university. This
amazing.
person wanted to be a Dillard. They decided to go to another university, a bigger university with more resources, and wound up going back to Dillard because the culture was just what they wanted.
Hmm.
And so I think there is such an opportunity for smaller institutions, for 2-year colleges, for MSIs, all these institutions that may not necessarily be the big sexy ones. They have these opportunities to really kind of take, really kind of pull off a coup
Absolutely.
in talent, and pull some people who bigger universities may think they have, but they might not have them.
Absolutely. I love it that it feels like got the first pick in the draft, or you got a first
Oh
round
yeah,
pick in
oh
the
yeah,
draft.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I love it that it feels that way, but anymore now, and I feel this like strongly, especially after the pandemic. I just think that people, it's not so much, we're not so much climbing the ladder
Hmm.
or trying to get to the next bigger thing. I think it's more about, what is a fit for me and what makes me
Yeah.
happy. I'm not a tall person. Actually, I'm the opposite. I'm very short. But I realized when I was interviewing at MIT, I was looking eye to eye to people. I
Mm.
wasn't like looking up at, and I was in a couple of occasions I looked at like tops of heads, and I'm like, is this for real? And I I was like, this is where my people are, and I mean, that's an oversimplification where, like, oh,
Not really
I
though,
mean, I
because you found your people.
people, exactly, and it
Yeah.
sounds kind of funny where, like, oh, where my shorties at, kind of thing, but but it just I was just, because there was a lot of other sh- Asian women, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
they were, I
Hmm.
mean, I just felt this very strong feeling, and I hadn't even gone. I was just waiting for my person to come get me. I was just like
Yeah.
standing on campus, and I felt this very like strong feeling of, this is where I need to be. This is where my
Yeah.
campus is, or where my people are. And that's different places for everybody. It's,
Hmm.
and so I don't think, again, it's not, we're not trying to get to the top rung. We're defining what those rungs are for us,
Mm.
like
Mm.
like working at home, working close to my daughter's daycare. Like,
Absolutely.
it's all changed, right? And so I again, that's why I think it's really important to lean in. Don't try to be a big school if you're a small school. Be that small, intimate school where
Hmm.
everybody knows everybody's name. Some people love that,
Hmm.
and that's exactly what they're looking for. So I think, I think be who you are.
I have to ask you this. So, looking at where we are, we have Gen Z coming into the workforce now.
Mm, mm-hmm.
On social, to attract talent, do you have a feeling of people having a preference for what's authentic or for what's shiny?
We are talking about a generation that grew up with social media. And then, of course, Gen Alpha coming after them, they were even thrown into the digital space before any of us really were ready, because they were, pandemic kids basically. And even when they were young, all of their classes also all of a sudden were online, so they kind of grew up online even earlier than anyone else maybe. But they can tell. They can tell when something is AI, and they can tell when something feels like it is marketing. They can, or if it's presented from the view perspective, if it's a pamphlet, like if it feels like a pamphlet made by the organization itself, they want to know. And this is why Reddit is popular, or these are why these kind of platforms are popular, because they just want to ask their peers what they think about the space, or what they think about the school, or what they think about the food at the school. They just have these really, yeah, just it's word of mouth type of conversations, right?
Or they can tell when the leader is faking it. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
I remember having a conversation with a president about getting on Twitter, and this is when Twitter was really starting to build momentum, and people kept telling him, "You have got to be on Twitter." So he and I sat down, had a conversation. I was his PR director at the time, and after the conversation, I said, "You really don't have to be on Twitter," and and it's because he was so uncomfortable with the thought. Like he tried a tweet, and the tweet he just it doing the one tweet took him through so many changes. And I said, "No, you have a much bigger job to do than to worry about Twitter. You really don't have to be on Twitter. You don't need an account. The university is going to be just fine." you know.
Yeah.
And that was a case in which I was just completely against, you know, uh, pushing a leader to be on social media just because people felt they needed to be on social media.
I agree with you 100%. I think it has to be a fit. It has to be what the person naturally gravitates to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It was so unnatural to him. Yeah. So let's talk about the way forward. Assuming that you do have this HR team that wants to improve those social media strategy to improve talent attraction, and I understand this question may have several parts to it. What are some steps that a team can begin to take over, say, the next 3 months to get themselves going to start implementing their social strategy for talent attraction?
yeah, I think that you have to have the conversations about, platform. We mentioned that,
Hmm.
resources. And if you're really, really dedicated to the idea of building a social presence just exclusively for the HR department, I really think you have to think about like human resources. Like,
Mm.
are we going to pay people to do this?
Hmm.
If if the HR comms person is not familiar with these platforms, you need to bring on specialists that are familiar and can create content, because content
Oh, so
doesn't
wait a minute.
just
They shouldn't get
make
a student.
itself.
They shouldn't get a
Well,
student intern to do the social.
I mean, that is a good option. It's a great option, but it's all part of the conversation, right? If it's not part of the budget,
And the only reason, yeah, right. The only reason I say it in jest is because the student intern is going to be gone in a semester.
right?
So
That seems to be the easy answer for everyone, right?
right,
But
right. And do you really want this student to have to handle some issues that they may not be ready to handle with the social media account? So yeah, that's
right.
the only reason I say it the way I do. Yeah.
No, totally. It seems like the easy answer, but if you're really dedicated and are making it a priority,
Yeah.
I think you need resources, and basically you have to understand it's either time or money, right? And so you bring in more people, or I or
Mhm.
you pay, yeah, or you dedicate more of your time to it, or you bring in more people to help with the presence and to create content. Um, S-
So with that being said, I have to tack on a sub question here.
yes.
So you're strapped for resources, right? And it's going to be pretty hard to get the Marcom team to dedicate their social person. And you say, "Hey, listen, we have an assistant. This assistant knows how to use social, whatever." Is it going to hurt if, say, the one platform? Let's say the one platform is LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Um, is it going to hurt them if this person who is in house, all they can afford, can only do, say, 3 posts per week? Is that something that's going to hurt the HR team or hurt the social media strategy?
No, no, no. I don't think it could ever hurt. I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, I guess I can think of ways it could hurt. But I mean, if we're saying just, they're not going rogue,
Just
right?
in
They're
terms of
not they're
output,
yeah,
yeah.
they're putting out content that's agreed upon and good
Hmm.
content. No, that's I think that's great. If that's
Yeah.
where you can start out, that's where you can start out. And remember, in LinkedIn, engaging with other people's content is also an engagement.
Yeah.
So it's LinkedIn is can be a really low lift, but can but you can really have a strong presence there,
Yeah.
doing some simple things. So no, I think, start where you can.
And people always forget you can actually find great candidates on Facebook, believe
Yeah.
it or not. I don't know why people keep playing Facebook like it's gonna die any day, but
I
it's
mean,
going as
yeah.
strong as ever.
No, it's true. In 2015, I was one of the ones who thought it's going to fade. It's going to die. I've been waiting. How many? It's been 9 years, Eddie. I've
Yes.
been waiting, and was the year I finally kind of came to the realization: Facebook is not going anywhere. It is
Mm-mm.
not going anywhere. The Facebook, their communities, they love their Facebook pages and their banter. And to tell you the truth, like I go into Facebook to look at my timeline because I always look at our content within platform because it's
Hmm.
just something that I like to do. And I'll can I tell you, all of a sudden I get into my, you always have to go through your
Yeah.
account,
Yeah.
and I find myself like losing track of time because
Yep.
I'm scrolling in the content. Facebook is stickier than you think or
Mm-hmm.
you remember. So, don't count out Facebook. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Jenny Lee Fowler, she is the director of social media strategy at MIT. Tony Stark's alma mater, by the way. Uh,
That's right. Yes.
okay, if you didn't get that, just watch the Avengers. And then also she's the host of the Enrollify podcast, Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager, author of the book Organic Social Media: How to Build Flourishing Online Communities. Jenny, thank you so much for joining me on I Want to Work There. Fun conversation.
Eddie, it was so fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
I Want to Work There is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Mallory Wilsey, Seth Odell, Dave Kibbles, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.